Yeah, it picks up everything. But if the microphone's on, it picks up more.
So what I'm showing you over here is
Unless you have it memorized, you can just talk, you just go quick.
Sometimes I'm over here, like point things out on them. I never know that it's happening, and I don't know that I'm doing it. No, I have no clue. Like when I was a teacher, the same thing, presentation, I'm always, yeah. It's very hard to stay still at all. Like, this is being recorded. Like, this mic comes over here, I'll talk about it. It'll be picked up on somewhere. Oh. No, yeah. You all have to tell.
Sounds like, man, you look so comfortable. This guy's doing stretches.
I'm good. Yeah.
I call this meeting to order at 7:01. And all board members except for Nancy are here. Nancy is unable to join us this evening. She stands for the press. And if everyone could please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I forgot to start with, we're having interpretation at this meeting. And did you guys want to say something?
It would only be in person if they were here, because we have,
Okay.
yeah.
And it looks like there's nobody here who is in need of it. Thank you for being here, we appreciate it. And I also just wanted to kind of make you know, this is our first meeting in person, so one is exciting. It's exciting to be able to see everybody in person, but I think also we might be a little bit rusty. It's a little bit different running a meeting in person than virtual. We had a lot of kinks when we rotated to virtual, and I think there might be a few little kinks, so just bear with us as we are figuring out our new old way of doing meetings. If there's anyone who wishes to speak, the speaker cards are in the back corner, and then you can give them to State Street. And okay, with that, we are on to item 2, approval of tonight's agenda. Board, is there a motion?
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
Okay. Any comments? Board, any comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Chair votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. We are now on to comments from the board and superintendent. And I'm going to add a little piece about the payment, but I'll go first since I'm like starting the video. So I thought it might be nice since they've seen for a while. And we also had talked about like doing something for yourself. Maybe each of us could share one thing you did this summer to rest or to fill your bucket. So I'll go first since I'm springing this on you. So I'll go first, and then I'll just like your comments, reminders, and then let me. I'll go first, and then we'll go down the line to Isabel, Jeff, and then Bridget. So the thing I did this summer to fill my bucket is we went out to Colorado, and one of my best friends moved during COVID from the lockdown, so we got to see them, and it was so good to like hug and to play with them, and they have a new baby that was born in February that we got up to hold and meet. And that was super fun. And then the kind of silly fill my bucket thing is, a lot of you know I love Hawaii, and one of the things I love is shave ice, and I got to have it 3 times on my trip. There's not really shave ice cans around here, but in other places there are. So those were a couple of my bucket fillings. And that's all I really have. Like I'm just kind of jumping back in this week, starting to do meetings, and so excited for start of school in person. I know that also there will probably be a few rocky spots, but it will be so great to have kids back and jump back in. So that's my back.
So the people on listening are telling us that they do person. So there's whatever we can do.
Okay. Yes, well, I was doing a lot of activities with the kids during summer, so it was a good time to share. They were having a lot of camps and things, and last week we did a family trip together for the last 2 weeks. And we went to Hawaii for the first time, so that was awesome. We now meet practically another vacation, all the kayaking and hiking and swimming and variety was very fun. And other than that, it was a good summer, trying to go back to some sort of normalcy. Visited the summer schools. I saw a lot of happy kids doing happy activities. It was very active. That was great. We were helping also some families with food, as usual. There were some meetings for how the district can support the kids when they are when they happen to end up in the shelter. So I hope that something that can come up out of that. It's very excited that we're going to be starting a new year now, the school year, and kids are going to be back to school. And also very happy that the governor just passed these new budgets where now he's going to support free lunches for kids in school. So that's been huge, and it's a step on the right direction. We'll be talking about that a lot, and people like Bridget who was always sending letters and trying to advocate on the county level help a lot. At least what's the great time in the right spot. So yeah, so moving forward, it's great. It's going in that direction.
I was able to take a week off, and I think what I enjoyed most about it was I enjoyed the week off playing chauffeur with my daughter, but it was nice actually that she was able to go to places that things were opening up and do that and start seeing her a little more just a little bit happy. So I'm hoping I think that's not translated to a lot of different sports people as well. So I'm feeling excited about this year. Just hoping we can continue on and continue improving.
Okay, so for me, my summer's been kind of a mixed bag. It's been a little rough in places, but it's been a lot of joy. A lot of volleyball in my summer. Ethan is 17, so he's 17th senior year, and he plays volleyball every camp that is possibly open. So he plays probably a year worth of volleyball in every summer. And I got to know him and his little buddies, like what they like to eat, because we spend so much time together, and lots of times they're teasing me about my driving, and, it was a good time. So, and I have to go to see I don't know when I'm going to do that again. So, that was good. I did have a couple of business things to share with the board. At Dr. DeWine's little ground gag thing today, she probably shared it with Superintendent as well, but they're trying to, the goal this year countywide is for in-person instruction. The goal is to preserve it as much as possible. But they said to do that, some of our policies, like, we might find that some of the things as we get into a school year, like things like truancy or attendance, like we'll need to revise our messaging around that, because we focus so much on, like, we don't want you to miss any school, but if you have a sniffles, you need to stay home, like get that checked out. So we'll have to, it'll be a lot of adjustment with like how we handle those things. And so she said, like, that they're talking to people at the state level, and they might need advocacy from school boards about that. And then the other thing, she was saying, like Sunnyvale is just a little below the county vaccination numbers. Like, I think the highest in our county is Los Altos, Palo Alto, and Mountain View. They have 99.7% eligible people vaccinated. And we're at 79.6. And she was thanking us, but like all the partnering with the schools for our vaccination sites, she's hoping that we will continue to partner as more kids turn 12 years old this year, and then hopefully they'll have vaccination for younger children. And she said the lowest age group countywide for vaccination is the 12 to 15-year-olds. People just haven't gotten around to it yet or might be nervous, so she's hoping we'll partner with them. And then the other thing was, the next monthly meeting, she's going to have a thing all about food, nutrition, child nutrition, what's coming next year with the federal plan, and what districts should be doing this year. And she's going to have a workshop for board members on districting, on district elections and districting, which is when September's out. And then the last thing is, I saw on one of the Sunnyvale City Council members today, I think it was Alicia Cisneros, she was saying she was so proud of their district because they were having, they were going to continue public comment from remote locations as well as people who came here at the city level. And I just wanted to let us know that, like, maybe I know as we go forward and see like how it goes, oftentimes we'll follow what the city's doing. So just, I don't know how they're doing it, but they seem to have found a way. And then it came up in Dr. DeWine's meeting today, and many people are recording but not live streaming. But Los Altos and Arietta and a few others are having the board and staff in person, the parents are on Zoom. And so there's just like all different, and they're using Reading Owl and all this other stuff. So there's all different combinations and strategies and reasons, but I think like, it's probably just something, I mean, I'm hoping that we're keeping an open mind as we can kind of go forward. So, I know we're trying out, if we have one camera here, are we live or are we being recorded and then?
We're live.
We're live.
Yep.
Yeah, and so, because, you know, I was just thinking, you know, right, okay, so I was just thinking that we could agendize it to talk about it at like one of our, you know, as we go. Yep. That would be great. Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Oh, you're done.
All right, fair enough. Yeah,
Okay.
I did mine.
So first
You
of all,
gotta do the bucket from here. Don't do
Yeah.
it, so you have-
oh, that's right. Well, actually, there are a lot of things that fill my bucket. One of the wonderful things about this summer was finally time to be able to spend more time with family and friends. So we had a lot more backyard get-togethers with family and friends and stuff. Yeah, I don't want to sell my friends short. But what was really wonderful, and Isabel, I think you alluded to it, was just getting into classrooms over the summer and seeing kids in classrooms was wonderful. And then this week with the teacher staff and doing the professional development, there's a teacher I was talking to who was saying how excited she was to be in the classroom because she's going to see the kids. And I said, well, that's kind of how I feel seeing new teachers here too. It reminds me that school is coming and it's going to be there'll be challenges, but it's going to be a good year. So, yes, very fun. So, thank you. Yeah, a couple of announcements. As you mentioned, Nancy Newkirk couldn't be here. She's actually traveling back from Florida and she couldn't work out today. So she sends her regrets. An important announcement I want to make is that this is, or tomorrow is, unfortunately for us, Rob Smiley's last day in the district. He's off to bigger and better things with his family out of state, so we want to congratulate him on his decision. I'm going to say a couple things. You know, it's funny, I was thinking back, so Rob joined us in December of 2013, and we knew we had someone really special right at the beginning when he was working on the Lakewood project. So Lakewood School, and what I'm thinking of specifically was, right from the beginning, when I was practicing this, I said, he got the kids involved in the construction. No kids were swinging cameras. So what he did is he took them out to the site and showed them, he had the people working on the project and interact with the kids. And we knew he had a different kind of chief operations officer who really cared in everything to us. So it's like in a different way, really cared about the kids and incorporating them. And that showed in the vision we had for the project. Rob's work here will last on indefinitely because Lakewood was a wonderful project. Bishop is just amazing. And when I was telling the new teachers from Ellis about how this year they're going to be undergoing construction, drive down the street to Bishop or go down to Lakewood and see what our beautiful schools are. So Rob, your legacy will live on, and we're going to really, really miss you. We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
A couple other things that I mentioned, vaccination clinics. We did finish yesterday and today, Lakewood and Bishop. I swung by both of them. And it's funny, they won't tell you what the numbers are because until it's all over, but they said they had larger numbers of first-time vaccinations at both of those clinics than they had previously, and they said they were very busy. So that's exciting. And we're going to continue to host vaccination clinics as long as people keep showing up. And you're right, as people turn 12, and then we're even starting to work on strategies for them, hopefully relatively soon, the vaccine is approved for younger kids. So that's important. And that's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, we are now on to item 4, comments from the Sunnyvale Education Association. I don't think there's anybody from that. On to item 5, comments from the California School Employees Association, and not seeing. We will move on to item 6, comments from the public. And then I also just wanted to make note for those who are viewing online, If you have any comments for the board, please send them to meetingcomments@scsb.org. And if you have any questions, you can send it to the same email and staff will respond. And we don't have any speaker cards, correct, Casey?
No.
All right, thank you. All right, we are now on to, and if I'm closer, are people hearing better? Do we know? So just everyone reminder to like speak closely to your microphone and mouth for those doing online from here. And let me know if you guys do get word if it's better or if we need to be even louder. Even louder. Okay. I can be loud, but it just feels weird. Sorry for those who remind me if it's extra loud. Okay, we are now on to item 7, the presentations, and the first one is the report on summer school. And I think before we get a presentation, Mala is going to say a few words.
I am. Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity to just introduce our most exciting summer program. We had no idea what we were getting into, but we were committed that we were going to be engaging our students and prioritizing our family needs. And boy, did we find a way to do that. So it was really exciting. You'll hear more about details, but I just wanted to highlight a few areas. So in the prioritizing of family needs, having it at multiple sites, sounded like a great idea till the logistics came into place, and then it all played out really well and seamlessly. There were times when, I looked at Jonathan and I said, we can do this, we can work out, and he said, yes, we will, and he's really instrumental in seeing this vision play through, work itself out so well. And the other one was, because of the pandemic and having families face such hardships with limited school days, we wanted to offer the extended program. Never done that before. We just went with, we're going to do this, we'll figure out the how along the way. And we hired the staff, and this was a really robust program at the 3 elementary sites. The reason we didn't have it at middle schools because we had no sign-up. But at the elementary sites, we sure did, and we provided them with the extended care as well. The other part was how do you get kids to want to come to school, right? I mean, it's not like, oh, it's summer and I have to go learn again. So we came up with this notion, thanks to, the Cumberland Cluster Classes idea of a passion project. We just asked teachers, what would you want to do that's exciting, that's engaging, spend an hour in the middle of the day so it's not only content focused, but it's really fun and engaging. And we know learning happens in a myriad of ways. It doesn't happen only through books and reading novels and doing computational math, right? It happens in experiential learning. And the range of activities they came up with impressed us deeply, and I know Jonathan will share a little more of that. The other biggest highlight is really the integration. We talked about this for many years, but this year, thanks to the two of them sitting over here, Jonathan and Cynthia, and also Juma, who is watching us online, had a very seamless integration of the extended school year programs for special ed students and some exploration programs for regular ed. So Lakewood campus has those programs, and I'm sure you'll hear examples of inclusion and mainstreaming and how positive that experience was for all students. And these are all some of the highlights I mentioned, like we tried for those, first time this year, and were amazingly successful, again, thanks to the people who will be sharing the presentation. But we also never want to take for granted what we have in place, that we continued, which is our STEP partnership. And even though it was, again, a year like no other, because there were no student teachers, because the program was starting later, time, and we just worked together to find a way to integrate and accommodate and have teachers who already graduated from the program, work in our classes, all towards supporting our kids and giving them an experience of being in person, because the entire student teaching experience has been online. So our partnership is our 11th year, and we just value it so highly. We think it's an amazing partnership. So thank you for letting me share my compliments to the team and really everything we went through to get into the place that we got.
Thanks, Mom. Okay, introductions.
The
Microphone, right.
And if you're gonna walk around, take a look.
Take it with me, or just shout really loud. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I'm Jonathan Watts, and
Hello, I'm Susan Chu, and I'll be, I guess, representing myself as well as the mission who is also coming with you.
okay. So every year we have summary recovery, and then we also have ESY. This year there were a couple different changes that Mala alluded to in our attempt to really integrate the two. So some of it was aligning our days and also allowing some of the classes to intermix and finding ways to have students work together. So on the summer recovery side, we had this site-based model. So we had the 3 elementary and then 2 middle schools, where normally we just have 1 elementary and 1 middle. We also had the expanded learning opportunity. So from 12:30 to 5, when summer school was out, 12:30 to 5 continued the day with our own kind of homegrown after-school program. So in the past, we had had the YMCA or other people that we might have partnered with, but this one was our own employees and our own activities and structure and everything else kind of created in-house. We were also, because of this site-based extended model where we were distributed among more sites, we actually had more teachers than we've ever had for summer school, which also allowed us, even with slightly smaller class sizes, to serve more students. So we served about, I think it was a little over 100 more. I tried to look in past years, and this year was, I think, somewhere around 100 more students that we went into the group did past year. So we tried to keep the classes still a little bit on the smaller side. And then again, our priority, so we picked priority students from those that may not have been engaged during distance learning, those that the sites, we left it up to the site to really determine priority for those students that would benefit most, and then we opened it up past that. Because we expanded so much, we are open to all.
So I'll talk a little bit about the extended school year program. And so for those who don't know, the extended school year program is a special education program for students who have an IEP and who qualify under the criteria of not, demonstrating regression over a break. Okay, so they have to qualify for extended school year. We followed their site-based model, and we actually had our SATs at 3 of the 5 sites. So most of them were at Lakewood, our preschools, the K-5 were there, and then we had an SAT class at both of the middle schools. So we're actually at all 5 of the schools in terms of being able to provide things like speech and OT and resource, and being able to push that into the students who had some recovery or pulling them out to those services. So that was really nice. Typically, we only invite the students who qualify under that criteria that I talked about. But this year, some of our school teams said, the students who qualify based on the criteria, that they probably really benefit from the extra support during the summer, given the year that they've had. So we took those recommendations, and when we found that we had some room in our ESY classes or within, a certain related service, we invited those students to join us so that they could get something of a jump start for the school year. We also had some students join us for something like a camp kind of thing. So some students who had things like social skill deficits and who hadn't, really connected with anybody in the last year and a half. Who didn't necessarily qualify for our services through their IEP, but we invited some of them for, half-hour sessions on a daily basis, or 1-hour sessions, so they could practice reconnecting with other students in a structured setting. So that was really nice to do. Yeah, and as Jonathan mentioned, yes, previously, yeah, there we go, yeah. And as Jonathan mentioned, previously we weren't, simultaneous. We were kids this year, and so it was really nice to be able to have that happen at the same time and to be able to do.
Okay, so this is just kind of a quick demographic makeup. So I pulled out the EL status and also ethnicity. So if you look at the left side, it's around 50% EL was our largest group there, and then 51% Hispanic. And then this was actually kind of fun to me. So this was a tally of the attendance per grade level across the site, and then tracked there. So I'm going to do a lot more analyzing of this later to look for trends, but this is actually really useful. We know that during summer school, there tends to be kind of a drop-off as it goes towards certain breaks. So you can see the dip near like 4th of July. Sometimes families will extend that a little bit. So you can see see it drop down. And then as the program concludes, there's a larger dip also that's right at the last week. So brainstorming ways to keep families engaged, find out if the timing that we're doing for summer school is, the best time, maybe a week earlier, a week longer, something like that. But that's something that we're going to be looking into. So looking at the first day, the number of students that were enrolled, and then last, so we had about, I think it was like a 13% dip. Yeah, about 13% drop from the first day to the last, which I think is pretty typical during summer school.
And so, for FY, we had similar kind of drops, families going on vacation and things like that. But for FY2, we look at kind of different sorts of numbers. So on the left side, you'll see how many students were actually offering FY or how many actually qualified for it. And notice that the numbers that qualified this year were pretty significantly higher than last year, which is something that we would probably expect coming back from this fiscal year. And the second graph over there shows how many students actually accepted and showed up. So you can see like this year, we actually had more students show up for our in-person offering than we did for our virtual offering last year.
Okay, so I always try to connect during summer school the instruction that's happening in the classroom. So we had like an ELA, English Language Arts and Math focus. We connect professional development leading up to summer school in those topics. So whatever we're saying, like this is the focus, we have PD workshops beforehand for the teachers. So we had, and I'll go through that a little bit. But for the math focus, we were doing formative assessment in math. And kind of by just the way that formative assessment in math works, we don't have necessarily like a concrete score or data point. So I still wanted to capture something around math because we work a ton with like Stanford's Joe Bowler math mindset and try to get positive attitudes around math. So I decided to do a math attitudes survey. They actually, almost every question that I asked came out, so I just decided to put one graph up so that as I started to build it, it turned out all the questions were just like this. So some of the questions that I had asked of the students were either statements where they agreed or disagreed, or a couple of free response where I said, what do you think of when you think of math? So this is representative of the, I think I'm good at math, agree or disagree. And then you can see there's a slight increase. You can't expect a huge gain in those 4 weeks, but this is a focus we've been working on for a while. So it was good to see that we did have an increase there and to see such a large percentage that did think that they were good at math. Other questions we had were, I feel comfortable sharing my ideas in math class. I know what to do when I get stuck, and just math is fun.
And so on the ESY side of things, I shared previously that our students qualify on the basis of, a regression shown on their IEP goals. So we really focus on their IEP goals during the extended school year. So this year, what was encouraging to see was that in person, we could actually run more of their goals than we could do last year in that virtual setting. And, just as a byproduct of that, we were able to see more students maintain or make progress on their goals. And that was really nice. We did have some goals that we still weren't able to run. That was due to things like inconsistent attendance and some behaviors. Some of our students haven't been on campus for a year and a half, so we had digital relearning to do, and that was the work that we did.
So the professional development that I talked about earlier, leading up into summer school, we had Kelly Boswell, who we've had contracted for a few different years, I think now, working with our schools on a writer's workshop, conferring one-on-one with students. And so that took place before summer school. And then Rachel Bacosa led trauma-informed lens. So, and I think she's still doing a series of those now. This is an ongoing thing with the teachers. And they got a lot of this, especially for the first time that they're back working with students, knowing all the different situations that our students may have been in during the pandemic. This was really helpful. And then we had Alicia Zare that talked about the formative assessment, math formative assessment, and using formative math tests.
For extended school year, our extended school year staff also attended the same online training just to see that continuity. And they were given the opportunity to also attend the other trainings that Jonathan area-wide staff, since they're working with very specialized student populations, and they have more differentiated needs. So one of our instructional coaches, Sana, delivered a training about 95% reading intervention curriculum. Jill Seymour delivered a training about our unique learning system, which is a web-based platform that offers lessons planned around the Common Core, but kind of differentiates for students with significant needs. And then our preschool program manager, CPS, will offer training on preschool thematic units so that we have some structure going into our summer for our preschool.
So one of the neat things that we offered that was unique to this year was our extended day program. We had this at the 3 elementary sites with about 141 students total. And I have to give a big shout out to, where'd I go? To Lindsay Simon. So she's a KLES, I think, site coordinator during the year. And then we found ourselves really quickly unsure exactly how to build out an after-school program. I don't have personal experience in building an after-school program. But some of the people that we had hired for this, like Lindsay, have a ton of expertise. And she just stepped up immediately and asked if she could kind of help create structures. And so she ended up creating kind of what the program was looking like at all 3 sites. So we worked together on material ordering, what their centers were going to look like, what their kind of checkout, because even little things like the checkout procedure during COVID times, meeting the parents, having walkie-talkies, being able to talk back to the group and slowly get the students out so there's not a huge, line of parents coming at 5 o'clock. All the little things that it really takes to make the program run smooth. She helped us a ton with that and kind of organized it all. That was pretty amazing. Also, we managed to deplete a lot of Kathy Rouse's warehouse. She, when we were originally ordering for the after-school program, because this is something else we didn't really think of, is it requires a lot of material. So if there's an art center that has 50 kids in there, and they're doing that art every single day, and 12:30 to 5 is a long period of time. So there's a lot of materials that we need to order. So Kathy was asking, I have not had any teacher in the last 30 years order more than a couple oil pastels, and it just cleans me out. Like, what is going on out there? So I told her about the after-school program and the passion project. So that was fun. Oh, and then also in-person assembly. So that was, and the magic of science is what it was called. And the presenter was ecstatic to be back. I think that this was his main kind of gig, and this was the first in-person assembly that he had done. So the kids were really excited about it, and it was great, even with the span of, kindergartners through 5th graders. They were all really excited to have that. So it's neat we got to offer that. And then passion projects was the other main difference and hit with teachers. So in the beginning, this was something I think that Mala kind of introduced and said, let's do passion projects, which sounds like a really fun idea, kind of like an elective of the teacher's choice, something that's really going to engage the students. And again, the material ordering was interesting because, again, we depleted most of what she had in the warehouse, had to try to figure all of that out. But it turned out to be really great, and I think that was, when looking at the staff feedback, that was one of the major highlights that they had. So there was everything from basketball, there was a knitter's niche, coding robot Olympics, first grade activists, mindfulness, lots of different art. And I think one class also did some sort of an anime study. So a couple pictures here, some more art. And then Karen was going to come today, but she had something else that came up last minute. But I'll go ahead and stop by. And I know Isabel also got a chance to see some of her passion projects. So Karen did a farm-to-table passion project. And they have at Lakewood little garden beds. And I'm quite jealous because I'm an avid gardener, and their garden is doing like 100 times better than mine. It's producing so much vegetables. I just couldn't believe it. They had every single student was able to make stuffed bell peppers, and here I am at home with a plant that maybe produces like one the entire summer. So there you can see that they're working in the garden here. She was making tastings, and then she even had Lindsay Jacobson, who was serving as the summer school site lead at Bishop. She happens to be a beekeeper, and so she zoomed in on a quick break with her class and talked after they had read a book all about bees, she had talked to them and answered all these questions that they had after reading the book. So it was neat to kind of like connect all of this together, the literacy with the farm. And then in addition to that, she tied this all in with the Delano grape strike. And so she had partnered, Karen Curry had partnered also with one of the Stanford grads who I think had a background in theater, maybe. And so I remember talking with Karen and she's saying, I'm not sure if like she's gonna lead it or exactly what's going, but Karen was saying, you know, it's not my expertise. So she kind of let her run with it and she did amazing. So she actually had the students write their own scripts and bring their props. They created everything. And then on the day that Isabel came to visit Lakewood, she got a chance to see the play in action. So that was really, really neat. And then this year was unique. I mean, we always partner with Stanford, but typically we have their student teachers who a lot of times it's their first experience in a school setting. And this year was different in that we had co-teachers. So we had already fully credentialed Stanford grads who had done the whole last year in virtual. So they did their student teaching entirely virtual, and we know that it's a completely different game when you get in front of students. So this was a really great experience for them, but also really great for our teachers to have someone else that has experience to be able to co-teach them. So one example that I thought was really cool was the Juntos program at the middle school. It was a 4th and 5th grade combination class, and they ended up kind of splitting them so that the Stanford grad could take it, and then the other, our Sunnyvale teacher, could have another half of the class. So it allowed them to flexibly group, either by language or by content. It was pretty neat to be able to have this kind of partnership this year. And then because it was new, and because we were distributed at this 5 sites, which we have never done before, we definitely had some challenges in the beginning. So busing, and a lot of these you'll see turned out to be actually like, hey, I guess we could kind of do this again. Busing was really interesting in the beginning because normally they just pick up from the site and go to one elementary or go to one middle. But to try and figure out how are we going to pick up from 10 different schools and then distribute to 3 elementary and 2 middle schools and not have the start times have to be staggered by like half an hour. I still don't exactly know how Denise and Oliver did it, but they managed to do it with the same start time at all schools. I'm really not sure, but it worked out in the end. Supplies, I had already talked about. Communication was another challenge because we didn't have that in-person communication. And unfortunately, a lot of families moved during the pandemic and may not have always given their most up-to-date address. So when we did try to mail physical letters, a lot of them got returned. So that was really tough until we got the school really started, and then they were able to send out school messengers from the school level, from the teacher level. That's when it seemed a lot like the communication problems eased. It was really when we were trying from the district before we had gotten started to send communication out on a large scale that was a little bit challenging. Oh, probably forgot some challenges.
Right, I'm gonna chip in on a couple of other challenges we had. So this is a challenge that all of you are familiar with. We had the challenge of playing around COVID that we had for the last year and a half, right? And we were in a strange place at that time because, you know, the conditions in the county were getting better, but we weren't sure exactly how guidelines were changing at that time. So, you know, we had to clarify what that was and understand those new guidelines and then change our various protocols in terms of like how kids are going to enter, leave, eat brunch and lunch, do recess, you know, how are we going to do this sooner, so to make those adjustments based off of what we already learned in the spring to the summer. So that takes a lot of planning and a lot of time. The other challenge here was that this is the first time that we actually had an opportunity to integrate our 2 programs, right? We tried to do it last year and COVID interrupted and we couldn't really do it virtually. So this year was the first year we really tried to do that, but we found out very quickly that there were some things that we need to work on in terms of, you know, not only aligning the dates, but maybe also aligning our times. You know, our program times were a little off, so we had, you know, logistical nightmares in terms of like, ingress for this program is at this time, and for this program is at this time, and things like that. And we also had some misalignment in our staff schedule, so that kind of limited some of our opportunities for collaboration. So definitely something that we want to work on as we go forward and try to continue to integrate for kind of school.
Okay, and then our successes, so a lot of it ended up, our challenges ended up being something that was great in the end. So I remember seeing Denise toward one of the last days, I think, in the parking lot as she was driving away the last day of the summer school, and she was telling me, hey, you know what? after starting out saying, I'm not sure if we could ever do this 5-site model again, she said this actually turned out to be easier than having the 2-site model. So she said it was easier because you don't have so many different school site children all coming at one spot. And so when you've got, students that are going to be leaving to go on the bus, it's a lot easier to say, you're getting on that bus. Then, okay, wait, you're from Bishop, that's bus 6 today. Okay, let me see which one of those. And like the direction of traffic when you have all of them coming to one site, it turns out is a lot harder than when, it's kind of spread out. So that was kind of neat to hear at the end, that it actually turned out to be a little bit easier. And then student enrollment, I think, made it a lot, because we had it at more sites, I think it made it a lot more accessible to families. So I definitely heard, I know in talking with Randy, the admin over at Vargas, she said this made a really big difference for a lot of their families to be able to, walk to school, to have it offered right there. So that was a huge success.
And then just the flip side of all this planning, because we put in all that work at the beginning and we made tweaks quickly when people actually started, all that COVID work that was like a huge focus at the beginning kind of faded to the background because it became routine, right? And kids adapted very quickly. Teachers said that it was actually pretty easy to do seniors, to look at the seniors like as kids entered their classroom, and we didn't really have very many issues with students keeping masks on or anything like that. We did have some students, being out because they had sniffles, so we had to follow COVID-related protocols, and we did have some positive cases, but our protocols were there and they helped us out, right? The staff pivoted so quickly, the next day they were virtual learning and then there was no in-school transmission. So the things that we did there worked. Another success, I know I talked about how there's a bit of misalignment and that's something we want to focus on, but the success here was that we were able to integrate. As I shared with you, we had students who were in summer recovery receiving related services. Typically, it's either you were in summer recovery or you were in extended school year. You couldn't get both. But now we have students who are in summer recovery who, if they needed additional speech support, they're able to get it. Right? So that was really great. And then the passion projects were a huge success too. Jonathan mentioned that staff gave feedback that it was one of their favorite parts. And students really loved it too. They looked forward to that time every single day. And that passion project time was also an opportunity for inclusion. That picture up there in the right-hand corner that you see, that's Diane the Dad's class at Lakewood. Lakewood is where we house, our preschool through 5 special day classes. And we had 6 actual summer recovery classes and 6 SBC classes. Everybody's done that. So each had a part in the classroom and they invited each other to join in the passion project. I saw students in one of our SBC classes in the garden with Karen Curry's class. I saw some students in the undergraduate class joining them for some part time. So it's really nice to see that integration and that inclusion.
And then these are just a couple quotes that I pulled out of the staff survey. But really, I think the gist of it was they were so happy to be back on campus, being with students, seeing that they were happy. I mean, other than masks and a couple, different protocols of lining up and things like that, it felt like a normal school year. And it was great to see kids smiling. And I could tell that first day of school when they saw their friends that they hadn't seen in such a long time, they just lit up. So it was really, really neat to see that. I think that was kind of the big takeaway, was like it's such a relief to be able to get back together.
So I'm going to just end with some lessons learned. I think one of the biggest takeaways for us was just how important social emotional learning is and how important it is going to be to kind of be pushing these school year with comments on lessons learned as well as our students back. Right? We're so great to have the opportunity, the time, the space for our staff to intentionally just make connections with our students, to establish relationships, to form community, and to kind of reteach the students how to be at school again. Right? We needed that time, and I think the kids really benefit from it. Having opportunities to engage in fun things and have passion That was awesome. I think we also learned about how resilient our students and staff are. You know, like they were able to come in, smile, and just kind of go into the routine of school, even though it was a little bit different than before, almost like their hands left. And, you know, just having that SEL support, I think really helps them, you know, with their resilience as well. I think another lesson that we learned also that I already talked about is just like to integrate further and just be a little bit more aligned. And so really want to keep on working for that.
And then I just written down, but I feel like we talked about it. The other lesson learned was that our safety protocols work. So there was no transmission among students or among staff, and everything that we had in place worked. So that was great. And then, Lieutenant, did you want to?
Yeah. I never miss the opportunity to thank the school board and the amazing administration of the school district. Michelle, you asked about how did you fill your bucket. So I want to say I didn't get a chance yet to fill my bucket. I didn't have a summer, but my summer is starting tonight. I'm going to be celebrating my 45th wedding anniversary, and we're leaving for Southern California, where we were married 45 years ago when I was 10 years old. I really, from the bottom of my heart, want to again thank the school district and most of all the students. I really have two bookends to share with you. 2 years ago, a year and 18 months, when COVID happened, our summer plans got put on hold. And we have spent 9 beautiful years building this amazing summer program. And but the beauty of it is that this school district quickly pivoted and had an online summer school program where your amazing staff learned how to start school online. And by them doing that, that helped us because at the end of the summer, they had collected all this information about how you begin a school year online. And then a team of Karen Curry, Ashley Perez, Rob Pelicano, and Catherine Watts did a training for our teachers that missed out on how you do summer and start a school year. And they gave them that foundation to start. So this school year, our step grad had an amazing start because of it. Then, to end this year, this class didn't have any experience of how to start a school year in person. And so, here we go again. The Office of Community Engagement at Stanford offered $40,000 grant to different departments at the university to go out and work with partners to make a difference in the community. And we thought, ooh, $40,000. What could we do with that? Partners. So we met with Mike and Mala and started brainstorming. And that's where the idea of extended day, how we might help there, which then led to how could we get our graduates into classrooms. And we have 13 grads that got their experience of teaching in person. And the thing that is really very emotional, one of our graduates decided that she wasn't going to continue teaching, but she needed the money from this $40,000 to provide during summer. But it was that experience in summer with Karen Curry and teaching in person. By the end of July, she decided she didn't want to be a teacher. She's the one that did the passion project around the delaying rate, right? And she's teaching. She started this week. You do make a difference. You make a difference. And we're looking forward to next year. We're going to be in person. So thank you so much.
Really, I'd just say a couple things. First of all, I want to thank you for beginning your vacation with us. And we couldn't be always more pleased with the partnership, and especially this year. Yes, those meetings where we talked about, like, this is an opportunity to innovate. And also, we're talking a lot about the concept of restorative restart. I'm sure you said that concept. one of the pillars of that is around sort of leaning into partnerships and premier partnership with Stanford, and really demonstrated how that works. So, thank you. So at least 11 more years.
At least,
Okay.
and then I can say it started when I was one. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
And happy anniversary.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, and I just want to say, like, I also was able to tour the summer school program, and it was amazing, and, you know, how well you work together is really impressive, and just how well the teams work together, and the kids were happy, and it was just like, that just built a lot of community, and, you know, we really owe you a lot, because there was just so much that everyone worked together, but you're really did a great job with the leadership, so thank you. Thank you for all the teams. Thank you. Is there any public, there's no comments for the presentation, are there?
Not for this one.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments?
I did enjoy the going around the school and tour, and I saw a lot of happy faces, kids who were very engaged, and they were definitely learning a lot. And it would be nice if maybe everybody can see the videos. I know that I think that you guys were taking videos of the theater production that the kids made.
Yeah,
And you have some also other kids in kindergarten made a music video. It was very.
Yeah, I can find those.
And that was so great because the connection with that teacher who did
Yeah,
it off,
yeah.
and then, like, we found the love of it. I was like, well, thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you. You guys, but then also, right, there was lots of other people who helped make summer school, so passing along our thank you and appreciation. Thanks for all of that stuff. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we're now on to 7B, referring to the in-person instruction. And Mike, is it enough?
Yes, we're going to do it. Okay. Oh, so thank you. So this is the exact same presentation we did for the community forum on Monday night. Monday night, we had over 650 participants, which is wonderful. We took questions and comments for, almost an hour and a half, which is good. A lot of interest, got a lot of good feedback from families. So we're happy with that. And, you know, on this slide at the bottom, it says August 18th is coming, and we couldn't be more excited. You've been with me since the spring, when we've been saying over and over again the target date of August 18th and committing to this concept of full return to in-person instruction. And the conditions went up and down and all around, but we committed to that. And I think by staying committed to it, we have been able to innovate and be ready more than ever for this August 18th instruction. There's a lot of excitement. So this is a quote from the California Department of Public Health, which talks about how to be prepared to be ready for full in-person instruction. And we've been following and really exceeding these tenets. So the first one, and I couldn't emphasize this more with the community, is around vaccination. So we are fortunate in our county. We're up, I check every day, we're up close to 86% of our population has at least one shot of vaccination. We're getting close to 80% of fully vaccinated. And in the 12 to 17 age group, it's picking up pretty quickly. We're getting close to 2/3. And as I said this morning, I was out at Bishop and visited there, and there's more and more vaccination happening, which is wonderful. That is the surest way to keep our kids safe for those who can be eligible to be vaccinated. And so I know everyone on the board knows that and believes that. but we can't say that enough, and I think we need to keep repeating it. To keep our kids safe, the grown-ups need to get vaccinated, and we're doing that in our county. Universal masking, we committed to that early, and now that kind of makes it easier in a way that the state and the county have said that all indoors facilities and people have to be masked. That was our plan, and that's really important, so it's a requirement in our school. And as the bullet there says from the Department of Public Health, it allows us to have school be school, right? So we don't have to have 6 feet between desks and worry about how many kids we can get in a room and have it look very sterile. We can have school look like school, and if those of you who visited summer school in July saw that, and it is just wonderful. More targeted quarantine practices, and we can go into the details on that if you like. It's a little bit, by being targeted, it's also very complex, but really the design of it is to allow kids where appropriate to be able to be in school. So it isn't where you have to clear out a whole classroom necessarily if there's 1,000 cases, way of looking at the quarantine practices to make them targeted so kids can be in school and keep classrooms open. And finally, a robust COVID-19 testing program. Many of you in the audience, and certainly the board may have heard about the governor's announcement and the state's announcement about testing of those who are not yet vaccinated. That was, what they rolled out was essentially the plan that we have. So all of our employees who are not vaccinated will be being tested once a week. The district will be providing that. We're going to be doing it during work hours. We have strong support from our Teachers Association and from our classified employees. Everyone in our district is committed to the safe insurance and committed to this concept of testing. Now, the setup that Mr. Nishihara came up with an outside organization, their first job is to roll through the district and make sure everyone gets tested at least once, or gets tested once. If they haven't been vaccinated, it's going to be actually a very small number. We're doing a recensus right now of all the employees. Actually came out today. I saw about mine today. You have to show that you were vaccinated. We expect that we'll be well over 90% of our employees, and maybe close to 100% who are vaccinated. Then of course there's always some people who just for medical reasons cannot. The testing program will also be available to employees who just wish to do regular surveillance testing. So it's going to be convenient, so I imagine that that's what it's taking advantage of. And then it can scale up if there are positive cases to help target the quarantine. So the contract that Mr. Nishihara set up with an outside organization is very flexible that way. So I think it's going to serve us well. This is the restorative restart concept that I alluded to when Ruth Ann was here. I think we've shared this before. And so many of these concepts are what I call very Sunnydale. So starting with centering relationships, remembering that we need to reestablish relationships, reestablish community in our schools, certainly among kids. Ms. Chin talked a little bit about behaviors and understanding teachers understanding that there will be behaviors and renorming behaviors. I think that's the term that she used. All that around relationships, and that's a very strong suit that we have. We have through the Community Health Awareness Council supporting our kids and families, through Acknowledge Alliance supporting our teachers and staff, and I can go on and on. Addressing whole child needs. Again, that's something that we are committed to in Sunnydale, and so reading this report and leaning into the concept of restore the restart really helps us in that, thinking in terms of social, emotional, mental health, language, academic needs, just really whole child, and looking at that. Strengthening staffing and partnerships. So I talked about taking advantage of the partnership we have with Stanford, being innovative with them was a wonderful start. Things we do with Sunnydale Community Services, with the Second Harvest Food Bank, and we go on and on. Really think of our partners, El Camino Hospital, helping with some of the testing. I could go on and on. But really look to our partners as well. Like, what are some creative ways that we can really lean into the concept of a restorative research? And then making teaching, learning, teaching and learning relevant and rigorous is of course a strong focus. At the base of that, we're realizing it's the social, emotional, and cultural foundation of really teaching and learning. And that's really impressive this summer, in the summer TV that Mr. Huja and the team have put together. That's a foundation through all of the professional development that teachers are getting this year. Social, emotional, and cultural foundation for teaching and learning leads to rigor. And finally, empowering teams to reimagine and rebuild systems. And so we started, two of you were able to attend our all management retreat about design thinking. I keep going back to the principles every time there's a meeting and saying, let's review this plan, let's review this construct. How can we use this to continue to be innovative and to make sure that we use the different concepts of it? And we're going to have one of the authors of the book that we talked about last time present next week, actually next Thursday on the 19th, around design thinking and really reimagining and rebuilding systems. So that's the Restore to Restart. There's a strong focus in the first 6 weeks in this concept, but it's really a year-long or maybe 2-year-long concept of that focuses on Restore to Restart. And then finally, I'm not going to say a lot about the summer school highlights because we've got a wonderful presentation on it. The thing I would say is the term I've used is that it was summer school for us was proof of concept in so many ways. Jonathan at the end talked about in terms of safety. Yes, so we employed our protocols, we adjusted our protocols, we tested our protocols, and when we had positive cases, we responded to them. We didn't have any community spread, which means that school can be, which is consistent with what other schools that have reopened with strong protocols have experienced. So that is what you would expect. Now, there could be, we need to be honest, there could be community spread once we start. We will respond if that happens. It is not going to be prevalent, it's not going to be widespread, but we will respond. So we feel good about that. So, with that, Mr. Nishihara.
Yes, and this is the same information that we covered during the parent forum on Monday, but I'm just going to cover a couple of these layers of safety that should be well familiar to everyone, hopefully by now. Dr. Geller covered the vaccination, California Department of Health mandate that came out. Again, just wanted to thank our employee groups, actually employees as well. We launched the form, we took up the data, make meaning of it. We put the form out today at 3:30. I was just checking now. We've already heard back from over 25% of our employees. And just remember, many of them don't report till Monday. So this is a great sign. So I just want to thank our employees and our employee organization for that partnership. The next layer of safety is our face coverings. Again, universal masking indoors. We are encouraging masking outdoors and maximizing space between when outdoors when students are eating, individuals are eating. The next bubble is screening. We launched our rudeness screener last year, so we had a way to integrate with PowerSchool. So we had a way to test it last year. And then summer school was kind of our bigger test, if you will, because we had maybe 200, 250 students coming to site. The fact that we are planning for the opening in person allows us to, it's going to sound like over the top, but unleash the power of Rudna because it integrates with each teacher's PowerSchool section on a nightly basis. It'll update. So teachers can see their roster, see who's screened, see who hasn't completed, and we have a protocol for that. It was difficult last year, so I want to thank our school admins actually because they had to build custom groups. Because if you remember, we were splitting sections by AM and PM, so they had to build those custom, whereas now we can actually just use the PowerSchool section. So we're looking forward to that, and this is a new way to use it, but again, we've been utilizing it for over the past for 8 months. Testing, Dr. Gallagher covered that component. The partnership with JPLS is allowing our health assistants and nurses. So I want to thank Dr. Dean and her team because now that our students are back on site, our health assistants and nurses are doing their day jobs. We have students there with everything from hearing and vision screening to, medications, and insulin type things in addition to this. So we thought it was important to bring a familiar partner. The APLS is actually the organization we utilized last year to actually train our staff when we were doing the Department of Health that binary antigen pilot. So again, we took everything we learned from that and decided to actually utilize the PCR test. So we were using the antigen test last year, which was a 15-minute Binex quick result. It is a little more labor intensive up front. So we decided to go with PCR because PCR is a little bit more accurate. Plus, the APLS has infrastructure in place, and we will actually get the results within a day. So it's a faster turnaround. So we thought more accurate and pretty quick was a better way to go. The next bubble is ventilation. I am going to he teleported. I'm going to ask Rob Smiley to comment on this, plus he'll give us another dose of Rob here.
You were in the zone, so I snuck up while you were talking about that. Good evening, board. Just give you a quick little touch point on where we are with the ventilation. Last year in March, we quickly identified that upgrading the HVAC air filters was going to be one of the most impactful health and safety measures that we could put in place at that point, prior to the inoculations being available and that sort. It's also given us a lot of time to test what we've done to the system since then, because they weren't occupied for a portion of the year, and then see how it worked as we had the students come into place. And as Chin and Jonathan mentioned, the various layers of safety that we have put in place really have not allowed community spread to happen in the class. So we've been continuing to refresh the filters as we need to. And, really something I mentioned in the community forum is we kind of take it a little step further than just saying that the manufacturer recommends you do this. We actually are testing the impact of how those filters are having on the HVAC system. We have an extremely qualified HVAC tech on staff and have been reviewing and re-reviewing our systems to make sure that what we're doing is going to be the best thing that we can be doing with the systems we have in place. And then as well, where we don't have a system that has the capability of being fit with a MERV 13 or higher air filter, or does not draw in outdoor air, we've added HEPA-rated air scrubbers for those particular rooms. So, and the air scrubbers that we put in there are much different than what you may purchase for your home. We actually have a 5-year cycle on the filters, so you can turn them on. They're designed to run 24/7, so the teacher can basically just leave it, set it, and forget it. They're pretty attractive units. They roll around, they're on casters, and they're actually designed to push and cycle as much air in the room as well, to just kind of have a local filtration on them. So we've been doing some studying on those, and are really pleased what we've put in place as far as that goes. So I'll leave it for that. Back to you.
Thank you, Rob. And then the base or bottom corner is cleaning and hygiene. We'll continue our cleaning regimen, daily cleaning up high touch areas, training for staff in the integrated test management to allow them to use approved wipes in the classroom, and then encouraging daily great hygiene practices, which is something that we need to do all the time anyway. This slide also was covered on Monday night, and it's just a way for us to briefly cover some of the COVID protocols and what's changing. So close contact definition is something new, where it's now focused indoors within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more within a 24-hour period. All of this, all symptomatic are considered close contact, so they go into the symptom protocol. This chart here is broken kind of into two parts. The left side is the vaccinated adult and student, and the unvaccinated adult is the same. The new highlighted areas is the unvaccinated students, where the case and the close contact were masked. This is what Dr. Gallagher was alluding to. This new guidance is designed to try to keep students in school. It's to keep us safe, but also prioritizing the in-person instruction. We just got guidance today that they can attend class, but no extracurricular activities or sports, including after-school programs like our LAS. So it's just it's getting further defined, so it allows us to implement that. And I guess that is designed to really make sure we're prioritizing in-person instruction. Any unvaccinated student would then be tested twice a week for 10 days. That is why we have the capacity of the daily APLS at each site, and so we can accomplish that testing. We would obviously need a parent waiver In addition, I forgot to mention that we are still leveraging our partnership with the El Camino Hospital District. So any parent in the community can also procure testing at any of the El Camino sites by going to either one of their clinics or their other locations. So we're really proud of that partnership. They've been serving us well since last September. We were one of the first districts with their partnership to be able to spin up testing on site for our employees if you know. And then the last is the unvaccinated student unmasked. It just has a modifying quarantine number 2. They still quarantine at home, but if they test negative after the 5th day, it allows them to shorten their quarantine period. So there's, Dr. Gallagher alluded to, there's a lot more information out there. School sites have the next level of detail. They've been putting this information out to staff and parents. We will continue to update our guidance. I believe Mike attends a Tuesday EOC meeting every week. I attend bi-weekly, every other week HR meetings where we meet with the county, and then our COVID-19 designee Mary Beth Allman attends weekly COVID meetings. So we're always getting new information. We're able to take a look at it, see where we need to adjust and move forward, and so we're constantly making those adjustments. Now I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Neal.
Good evening, everyone. Glad to pick up and move forward on our presentation this evening. The next 2 slides, I'm going to go right past those because I think we have a duplication on our slides. So just to recap on those, we have the restorative restart that Dr. Gallagher presented and gave the details with regards to our partnerships and our focus this year. So I'm just going to move past that item. And then just to recap on with the restorative restart, what that will mean for us and our lenses this school year. Emphasis on the equity, our multi-tiered systems of support, and then our recovery, renewal, and reimagining. So we're going to move into a little bit, just as a reminder about our equity statement. And we thought it was important to share that this evening as we get ready to kind of reboot and get back on campuses. And this is work we started prior to our closure, and is our passion project, as we've talked about a little bit, that we've been on this journey for a while, and our board has come together with our initial equity statement. So we thought it was a good way to start our year to kind of remind our community about our focus and the importance that we're learning without limits. And these are some of the emphasis points that we're going to continue to emphasize as we go through the presentation, and also will be our lens as we move through this school year. So with that, we will have an emphasis on social, emotional, and cultural support for the whole child. And that will include a few items. And so I'm going to pause here just a bit to kind of emphasize what these particular areas mean for us. So the first area is about social, emotional, cultural framework. That will be really important because as the title or the label there emphasizes, it's a framework. So our focus is to have a strong foundation for this work. There's lots of places you can start, there's lots of things you can do, but it's really important that we're consistent in our messaging, which will help the activities we do, which will help how we're teaching and supporting in our classrooms. And it just allows us to be in sync as a school district and school to school in the work that we're doing. Some of the activities may be different, but this framework will guide that work, and we'll have a common language in order to do what can be very challenging and somewhat intimidating work when it's done in the right way. So that will be a big part of what we're doing. So that's what we mean when we talk about the social, emotional, cultural framework, and that will literally be a template or tool that we'll be using, and that will be supported with our coaches who will be working at our school sites and working directly within classrooms as well. The next area, trauma-informed and equity strategies. So we are starting this school year with, even before school starts, with providing staff with online modules that have to do with what does it mean to be trauma-informed and aware, another lens. And the big distinction when we talk about trauma-informed, it's a life-changing event. It could be something that happened to you physically, emotionally, physically, and sometimes
times when the trauma occurs, you may or may not even be aware that it actually occurred, which is why it can be so difficult to support. Because a big part of the work is one recognizing that there's a change in behavior in someone or something. And then once that change is recognized, then being able to provide strategies. And it's really important that the strategies that are being used are from an equity lens, because if not, you could end up doing more damage than actually helping. So it's a very sensitive, I guess you could say, dance that we're going to be doing. But this initial training that our staff are getting through modules and pre-work, in addition, the professional development activities that our teachers have been going through this week, whether they're talking about mathematics or whatever they're doing, we're infusing that conversation into that. In addition, we've had some targeted trainings this week that are specifically talking about what does that look like in my classroom and what do I need to do as a provider serving the students. And then lastly, the area there, not only our students have potentially experienced trauma, but maybe staff as well, and our families. And so we want to be sensitive to those needs with resources and things that we're providing this year. And then lastly, social, emotional, cultural responsive teaching strategies. So we have a dedicated effort working with Ed Services. We're working across departments, our human resources, and really working to that framework that we talked about, getting coaching and training as teams. So then we can go into our schools and support them. Our principals are also getting this training so that they can be better support to their school sites and their teachers that are working. So it's all going to come together, and that will be the lens that we will be using this school year that will guide our work and allow us to do what can be very difficult. So with that emphasis, I'm going to transition over to talk a little bit about independent study this evening. I'm really excited because while we got the new legislation that passed, and I'll be coming a little bit later to talk about those changes, I was really excited that we made a decision as a school district to continue our program and let that program be more robust if it needed to this year. And I'm just really excited about that because that put us in a much better position than we might have otherwise been if we had not had that on our forecast. But what we can say is that with the pandemic, we've learned how to pivot pretty well. So with that, those new updates, we were able and have been, and our team that we're working with and our school leaders are really helping us to do that. So I'm just going to highlight some of the areas that with the new regulations that have come our way that we're going to be responsible for. And so those are the areas I'll be highlighting this evening. So the roles and responsibilities, not new, but talking about what some changes are, our master agreement, assignment sheet, what does that mean, curriculum that we're using, and just a tad bit about what does it mean to evaluate as a part of the independent study program. This next chart is just to try to give you a sense, while there's a lot of language in the new regulations, when you really funnel it down, as you'll see, it comes down to just really a few unique changes that have occurred, but they're pretty impactful changes. But this slide is designed to just talk about it's still an alternative curriculum program, but the curriculum is not altered, but the programming is, in order to serve students in a more individualized way, whether it be unique learning needs that they have at this time, in particular, health and safety for some students who also have some health conditions. The independent study will allow those students to have access if they don't feel that they're able to be safe in person. The other areas, this slide here looks like it didn't get quite changed, but anyway, we have a traditional and then we have a course program. This independent study will continue to be traditional and continue to have course offering programs. So it's a blend of those two things in order to, which allows it to be the alternative program that it is. The next area is about staffing and the ratios. Those will be consistent as they are in our in-person classroom. The exception we're making is depending on who signs up, we may have multiple grade levels and needs that we're dealing with. So as a result of that,
We may need to reduce the ratio so that teachers can be effective in the way that they need to and have the impact that they're seeking. Voluntary enrollment into the program, so you can't mandate anyone to be into independent study, but it's a voluntary decision that a parent and a student are making. And then lastly, students with special needs are able to be a part of that program, but that decision requires an IEP in order that we can ensure that students are getting their free appropriate public education met. So on this next slide here, what's new? So as I indicated, we had some regulation changes with AB 130. And so what that came with are that allowing students who do have some concerns about health risks, about being in person, the option to be an independent study. Typically, the independent study, we try to use a multi-tiered system of support, lens, and support to make decisions about students who are going to the program, to be sure the programming is going to be appropriate for them in the truer sense of independent study. But with this shift, we'll take those students, and that will mean we'll have to be a little bit more innovative in how we deliver services for some students who might need a little bit more support in order to be successful. The other areas with regards to the independent study are live interaction requirements, as well as synchronous instruction. I do have on this slide here, I think we've updated, but the information about A through G, even though we're not a high school, that is a big part of this shift as well. And that's important because even though we're an elementary school district, we are still preparing students to move forward. And so it's important for us to be cognizant of that as we're moving forward as well. And then the other big area of change is that students are able to transition back from the independent study program back into the in-person. And we have a responsibility to try to make that transition happen within 5 days, 5 business days. And then lastly, the documentation and requirements around engagement and participation for students. And while this is a new regulation component in the regulation for Sunnyvale, this is not new because as a part of our attendance practices and our focus to be sure students are present and learning, we typically have done that anyway as a part of our intervention program through MPSS and just monitoring students. And if they're having challenges, we should we're meeting, having student success team meetings, et cetera, to ensure that students are successful. This next slide I'm not going to go through, but it's basically a recap of some of the things I've already talked about and some reminders that we had a responsibility to notify our community. And so we did that through email information that went out to families. And then we also communicated with families who had indicated an intent to be an independent study. So they got a direct communication with details. So if they wanted to seek more information as early as possible, they had an opportunity to do that. Key definitions I want to emphasize here. We talked a little bit about live interaction and synchronous instruction. And so what's important here is that the interaction takes place in person or in the form of internet. But they're just trying to be sure we're connecting and students have an opportunity to connect with a person or with a peer or with someone just to be sure students are okay socially, emotionally. And then synchronous instruction. More classroom style, it could be one-to-one instruction, it could be small group instruction, but just being able to be sure that the students are getting kind of that two-way opportunity of engagement, teaching and learning with the teacher. Okay, next slide, there we go. I talked a little bit about roles and responsibilities. This aspect has not changed. Students have roles and responsibilities, parents and guardians have roles and responsibilities, and then our teachers have roles and responsibilities. The purpose of this is to be sure everyone's clear about what you're signing up for, what the responsibilities are. Students are at home, so it does require parents to be more engaged and aware of what they're doing, homework, assignments, and see if students are struggling so that they can also let the teacher know, because sometimes the student won't communicate that. So it's a partnership always, but in independent study, it's critical for the success of the student.
As a part of independent study, there is a master agreement. As a part of this master agreement, the roles and responsibilities that are listed above, that we just talked about, are actually a part of this master agreement. It's kind of that final opportunity to be sure parents, students, and teachers and staff and administration are clear, and then and what the expectations are for the program. So that comes with being outlined in the master agreement, as well as in the orientation that's provided to parents before they actually start in the independent study program. The other component that's critical is the weekly assignment sheet. And the weekly assignment sheet is where the individualized instruction and considerations for students really come to life, because each student's plan is going to focus on the common core things that we need to teach them. But in addition to that, it has supplemental opportunities, activities for students that aligns with their needs, their learning style, their interests, etc. So it's really a wonderful opportunity. I look at it quite a bit like having an individualized learning plan, which is really nice. And then in our infant phase program last year, we actually started with this program. We shifted to Edgenuity. And we started that program last year with our middle school program. And one of the things while we made that shift is it did a better job of some of the course offerings, in particular in mathematics for our students. And so the other program was not as strong in particular as it related to middle school. But teachers gave us great feedback and direction with regards to that. And as a result of that, we kind of made the decision to make it our main program so we wouldn't be in two buckets. And then also a bit of the flexibility and some of the individualization opportunities that we may also have with the Edgenuity program. The last piece here is methods of evaluation. That really has not changed. Attendance is very critical. But the piece that I want to emphasize with regards to that in independent study is a portion of the attendance is directly tied to the assignment sheet, because that's how we're actually be able to monitor how much time students are learning and gaining the instruction that they need. So students completing that is the way we can demonstrate and validate that that's happening. And so that's why that ongoing weekly meeting that we're having with students and their families, if they want to join, where appropriate, is so important to be sure that that's actually happening. And then, of course, academic process progress, like we do in all of our classes. This is a big part of that, and just being sure that the quality and the quantity of the work is matching. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gallagher for any additional questions or information we want to have at this time.
All right, thank you, everybody. I think we have one comment from the public. So if you want to come up, you have 3 minutes. Do we have, okay, so you give like a 30-second one maybe? Okay, great. So if you can share your name so we have it on the record, that would be great. And then go ahead. Welcome.
Yes, is it on?
I don't think it is. Maybe if you push it.
Is it on?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
perfect.
All right, my name is Eric Brock. I'm the father of a rising kindergartner at Cherry Chase and also the founder of the Sunnydale Partnership for Healthy Schools. The measures that staff put in place were good for COVID-19 prevention as we understood the science through June. And the district had good results with summer school. But the situation has changed. Delta variant is far more contagious with a record number of growing number of children currently hospitalized nationwide. Also, new CDC and Mayo Clinic studies came out in July showing that adding portable HEPA air cleaners to classrooms can reduce the amount of COVID-19 aerosols in the classroom to a level 3 times lower, according to the CDC, or perhaps as much as 5 times lower, according to the Mayo Clinic, than HVAC HEPA filtration alone can achieve. Since the threat has increased and the science has advanced, we ask that you commit to use COVID-19 relief funds to be proactive, not reactive, and strengthen our protection against Delta variant transmission in the classroom now by deploying portable HEPA air cleaners in the classrooms. I want to thank Superintendent Gallagher and Rob Smiley for their transparency and responsiveness in response to our questions on this topic. We understand that the district is currently testing portable people air cleaners for potential deployment into the classrooms. We asked that program be accelerated so that we can quickly move forward with deployment. Delta variant isn't waiting for us, and we can't afford to wait ourselves. If for some reason the district decides to ignore these new scientific research findings and not deploy portable heat air cleaners in the classrooms, we ask you to immediately notify parents so that we can donate these heat air cleaners approved by the district in an equitable fashion into every classroom in the district. And we as parents stand ready to raise and donate the funds necessary to make that happen if the district won't spend its COVID-19 relief funds for that purpose. I ask that the staff and school board please carefully consider the estimated direct costs to and impacts on the district and families if there's a documented case of COVID-19 transmission in a CSD classroom. Delta variant has already justifiably increased parent concerns about whether the return to in-school instruction is safe. And if there's documented in classroom transmission, parent or parental confidence may collapse. Also, since fully vaccinated teachers, we now know can be infected by and can transmit Delta variant to others, such as students or their own family members. I believe that reducing COVID aerosols to the lowest possible level in the classroom is now an important safety issue, workplace safety issue for teachers as well. So please, spend the funds, don't delay. Thank you very much.
You set your own timer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you. Board, are we interested? I know at the, Rob shared a little bit about that. Robert, you want to just kind of share a little bit about kind of what you shared on Monday night about how we're looking at them, and I know like the noise is kind of one of the concerns. You can share with us a little bit about what you guys have been working on. That'd be great.
Yeah, of course. Being Mr. Scott, being board. So actually what we've done, and to kind of take it a couple of steps further, is even one of the brands that Mr. Croft had suggested in some of the emails he sent Dr. Gallagher and myself, we went and purchased one of those as well, because we feel like, testing a couple options. If you're looking at the possibility of a very broad deployment, it's important, and going through some analysis and vetting process for these, and not just pumping them out. Besides the, and I don't know if I'm saying it right, saying it have already go, but the air filters versus some of the other technologies that were originally introduced right at the onset of COVID. All the companies were pushing these very hard. There's been a bunch of news articles. In fact, this week, Jesus sent me an article talking about the, just in general, like the compensation that people were receiving for pushing these products out so quickly. And a lot of the agencies that did deploy some of those ozone type ones that were actually trying to kill the virus in the ductwork, it was emitting a byproduct that turned out to have some not so positive consequences. And districts that had implemented those, spent millions of dollars in these things, and they've all actually ended up pulling them out of their system. So in that regard, I really feel like the analysis and the making sure what you're doing and vetting that out is served us really well in that regard. So we've purchased one of the particular ones that he had recommended, and then we've also purchased one by a company called Austin Air. And while they're both fantastic units and they're standalone, we have to look at them from a sustainability perspective as well, because sustainability, you could think about it like maybe saving water, but you also have to look at from the operations and maintenance side, something that's sustainable, something that we can maintain. So we've had a couple of units that we've tested, like I was saying, and we looked at them for noise output at multiple distances and at multiple ratings of airflow through them. So Dr. Gallagher came over and visited the operations office a couple weeks ago when I had just one of them in there, and the comment was, walked in and said, "This is not bad. This is actually a pretty tolerable amount of noise." And so, well, hang on a second, let's turn it to the number 2 speed setting. And I again looks at me and I say, "Well, that's on the borderline." He said, "Yep, that's on the borderline." Turned it up to number 3, and basically, if you were to turn it up to that amount of airflow, simply what would happen is the teachers would just unplug them, and rightfully so. You couldn't pass any bad judgment on somebody for unplugging it, because it would make it too difficult to teach in the room. And this is something that we talked to the certificate staff in particular about right at the onset of COVID, during some of the negotiations of the return to school and all those various measures about taking things a little bit of a step further than what some districts were doing, where they were making broad, bold statements maximum air change, maximum airflow, it's like, let's take that a little bit deeper and look at how that impacts CO2 numbers in the classroom as a gauge for actually a threshold on how much air we're changing, because you have to have something to correlate what you're doing to some measurable number, right? We aren't able to measure the number of COVID particles in the air. So we've been taking that, and then with these air filters, it's the one that I'm going to ultimately recommend to Mike as one that would be a possible option if it was the direction the district would want to go, would be that that Austin air filter. And it has a couple of advantages, I feel, over one of the other products that we sampled. It's actually designed to, like I mentioned earlier, push the air out in a little more broad fashion instead of a closer cycle of air. It has a 5-year filter lifespan on it. If it does happen to choke the unit out, so something else I mentioned during the meeting on Monday is as air filters become clogged, the common conception in your head is that, well, it's not working as well. It's actually working better. It's starting to choke out the unit a little bit, which does ultimately mean there's a little bit less air that's flowing, and that means the unit's working harder, right? The fan's pulling harder, and it's not getting that air to come through. So with this particular company, if the air filter unit dies before that 5 years, they have a prorated warranty, so it's a very low maintenance factor item for us, and that's something we look at. Can you deploy it? Can you maintain it? Can you continue to own it? So it's a really nice, robust unit. It has a metal casing on it. It has casters, so it's easily relocated. And basically, the teachers would just plug it in, turn it on, or we would turn it on for them, so they really wouldn't have to do anything actually, and it would just be there. So it's a viable option. I think there is some merit to it, in particular in a time of year when there is a high number of outdoor air quality. The AQI is a high number because of smoke, perhaps. So even in a pre-COVID or post-COVID world, the upgraded air filters that we put in the HVAC system serve as a benefit regardless. And that's one of the reasons why we really kind of came out of the gate with those. Is one of the things we want to do, because regardless of this situation that I hope becomes a very brief moment in time, there is a long-term benefit to breathing cleaner air. So, I know that was a long answer.
Any further questions for Rob for this? And I think this is on the publication. Okay.
Would one be an extra room?
But how big the room is?
Yeah.
But one would be enough for a standard classroom. Correct.
I just have one quick question. Before we buy them for all of the classroom, we're going to try it in a couple classrooms just to make sure the noise.
We actually, this is the unit that we had been deploying in those rooms that didn't have the outdoor air being drawn in or couldn't be fit.
Okay, so it already has been used in classrooms with students and people.
And
no noise at all.
we haven't experienced any failures yet. I mean, it does make some noise. I mean, I wouldn't be risk if I said it was silent, but that's just all balance.
Yeah, so as long as it's been tested in the classroom.
And we've had it running in our office, just as an experience thing. And none of the ladies who work in the front office there, or myself, or Grant, find it to be any concern. I think you guys share the same thought.
Yeah, any other questions about that? Any other related to this presentation for Rob while we got him up today?
I can walk back up again.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Jeremy.
They can do it if you want.
We should just keep having you talk since this is your last meeting. We have
I'm enjoying this.
We're gonna miss you. We're gonna miss you. Okay, any other questions, or comments for about the presentation? Yeah.
So do we have enough teachers for, for independent study, do we have enough teachers for the students who want to attend, and how many families and children are there so far?
Sorry.
Rob, you want to take? Okay. Independent study, we are pressed over 100 requests, and so that was obviously from the communication we had over the summer, and then Dr. Dean's team has reaching out to everybody who participated last year, and then our parent forum on Monday has caused kind of I don't want to say a little spike, but increased interest. So huge kudos to Principal Romander and Assistant Principal Real at Fairwood, who are fielding a lot of questions because the program has a lot more to it, right? A lot more details now. So they're doing a great job of trying to communicate that with families. So that was a long way of answering that the interest has gone up. We know we need to hire additional teachers. We are in that process right now. It depends on kind of what happens over the weekend with additional requests, but if it levels off and we get the hiring that we think we have, we will be just right for the start of the year. But caveat is, again, if the demand continues to rise, we're going to have to keep trying to match, but we are in that process right now.
And as far as my other question is, when they're meeting with the students, I know they talked about fluid being a hub, and that they believe that in person is like the best way to make that connection. So are families going to be allowed to see that one-on-one or consultation with the teachers? I'm sorry. Will they be able to do that virtually if they're very fearful of coming into Fairwood for the time being, or that they have this commission thing?
We're going to take it case to case, but our initial is to try to have everyone come in for that session, because that session may be one, it might be small group, because we're really trying to be sure we don't miss the social-emotional, cultural learning that needs to happen. But for sure, if it gets to a point where that's just not best for a student for whatever reason, then we'll do it as case by case.
Okay. And then for the, what threw me off about the assignment sheet was that it had the engineering logo on it. So when the students are getting assignments, they're not all engineering assignments, right? They're multiple, they're from the overall curriculum that the board approved and everything. And then some are from engineering, or are they all from engineering?
It's a combination.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you so much. Just as always, right, there's a lot of pieces involved to this return to in-person. We know that more than concern, like we said, we learned how to pivot, we learned how to adjust and make changes quickly, and I'm sure that we will be doing a lot of that the next few weeks. So we thank you now and in advance for everything, and especially the teachers will be doing it as well. So thank you, we appreciate that. Do we want to jump into doing discussion, or do we want to do a 5-minute break? 5-minute break. Okay, let's do a very quick 5-minute break. We'll be back at 8:50 with our review and discussion of the
I know, yeah.
Oh, you lost it? Are you just excited or what?
It's funny, like, you just want to go the chest up for years.
I know.
I'm just happy to finally see everyone in real life. Instead of in front of the computer for the past year.
All of them.
Every time. Yeah, it was nice.
16, 17.
We showed up at like, I don't know, 3 buildings. And then it worked out. Right there.
From this secret inside, that side. The map.
Until next time.
We'll put a hike. Get that tomorrow. That's what I take care.
Good night. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. I should go to the board meeting tonight. Yeah. Like, oh, you don't. Right? I should just go.
Maybe we could try it like.
All right, we are on to item 8A, review and discuss the first reading of board policy 1313 facilities and the contact, Mike.
Thank you. So this is a new board policy recommended by CSBA. Just kind of in summary, the policy includes First Amendment free speech considerations, behavior that constitutes civil behavior, practices that promote civil behavior, and authorization to educate or provide information to students, staff, parents, guardians, and community members to assist, that's even better. Assist in the recognition, recognition, development, and demonstration of civil behavior. So, I recommend that we, this is just for review discussion. Policy 1313.
All right, thank you. I don't see any public comment. Board, any questions or comments? We're good putting it on consent. Thank you for offering this stuff, and this is a good one that we all support and appreciate. Okay, we're on to 8B, review and discuss the first reading of Board Bylaw 9012, Board Member Electronic Communications. Mike, again.
So first of all, I want to thank you for thanking me, but really it's Kate who's on top of this. So he's keeping us moving along with board policies and board bylaws. This is an update to Board Bylaw 9012 regarding, mostly regarding electronic communications. And so it's incorporating new law AB 992 and AB, which was passed last year, which authorizes board members to engage in separate conversations and communications on social media platforms, but it limit or describe how you can do that within the guidelines.
Thank you, and I'm not doing any further comments, or any questions or comments on this item. All right, we're good for that one. Next one. Yeah, thank you. For keeping us all up to date, we appreciate it. All right, on to C, review and discuss the Westside Education Authority JPA agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is one I'm very, very excited about. It's a new concept. It's a new joint powers authority, which is a legal authority, considered like a special district. And it's really a partnership between Fremont, Cupertino, and Sunnyvale. Interestingly, West Side, we settled on that as a name. West Side was the original name of Fremont Union School District. I don't know how many people know that. So it's really kind of a unifying name. The purpose of this is to come up with programs that are in place to discuss and innovate around attracting and retaining employees. So, of course, housing is one that we will tackle. Childcare would be an important one. Transportation, and really the concept is to be open to whatever ideas that come our way. There would be very minimal cost at the beginning. Once ideas start to come, the JPA can't spend any money because it doesn't have any money. So we've got to come, the individual districts would have to go back to boards of their administration and keep trying to implement concepts. But we're excited to get started. The three districts are all waiting for review and discussion around this week, and then we'll come back around the 1st of September, hopefully for approval of the new JPA and we'll get started.
Thank you. And not seeing any public comments or any questions or comments. I think it's a great idea. It kind of started and then went on hold and now we're back and I think it's great. Yeah, one of the main things that started to become other than odd. Thank you for moving forward with that. All right, we are on to 9A, review and action. Approval of board policy 6158, independent study. Process.
Thank you. So, Board, I'm bringing to you an update to our independent study policy. As we had a presentation earlier this evening, to kind of talk about how the shift occurred to AB 130. And so the changes that are being proposed this evening are to be in compliance with that new regulations that have come our way. We talked about some of those and giving you a summary as well as in the presentation this evening, but emphasizing some of those critical changes, ensuring that we've communicated with our community, and ensuring that we're going to be incorporating tiered engagement as a part of this shift, giving parents opportunity to go back to in-person within the 5-day timeline that we talked about, and being sure that each student has a master contract in place. And in order to do this, we need approval of the updated policy in order to support that program as we move into this new school year. So coming to you as a recommendation to adopt the proposed board policy with regards to these changes.
Thank you, Tasha. Not seeing any public comment. Board, is there a motion? We get to adopt the proposed board policy, adopted on 6158 and
Second.
all right, board, is there any discussion? When the governor office or the Department of Education are not only California State changes things again in the series where they probably revise the policy again, or do you think, yeah?
Okay, that is correct.
Okay. Any other? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. Thank you for all the work you and the team for independent studies. That is definitely one of the ones that will help. Take We are on to item 10, the consent agenda items. And there's no public comment on this, or is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Board any, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. We are now on to 11, the information agenda, and just, for making everyone aware, the first one is the Williams Uniform Complaint Settlement Quarterly Report. And there were no, complaints with returns. Then the administrative regulation 6162.51 state academic achievement test, and the information is there in the agenda. And C is the exhibit to board bylaw 9323.2, action by the board, and again, the information is in the agenda. We are now on to item 12, public comments on closed session items. And there's no public comment. So we will now convene the closed session, and then we come back. We have a few items before we adjourn. So we are adjourning to closed session at 8:53. Rob, you have to jog before you're allowed to leave. You gotta get the water bottle flipper on this side of the.
I can do a lot of things, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can.
I really think
Right now, yes.
we got so much, Mike. Several. It sounds like Charlie Brown. Can't understand it. There's gotta be another way. Going over like. But you can still do it. You can still do it. Yeah. Or still guilty.
You're drinking water, that's important.
That's true.
All right, you take care.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah. However. Well, not bad, that's not bad.
Yeah, so I just thought my binders.
You're also, I've probably never bought a new binder.
Oh, yeah, I can do it.
Oh, no, I'm not gonna get it.
Okay. All right, are we back on the sound? Okay. All right. All right, we are reconvening to open session at 9:37. All right, in closed session, we discussed conference with labor negotiations and the anticipated litigation. No action was taken. But we are about to take some action. So now we have review and action for 15. The first one is verbal summary. Should we do like A and B kind of together?
Yeah, we're gonna do A, and then I'll read it, and then I'll come back and I'll say, I recommend you, for B, I recommend you.
Okay. So A is the verbal summary of compensation package offered to the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Information Systems.
Okay, so settle in. This is gonna take a little bit of reading. I think it's the education code requires us, maybe it's the government code, requires us to read the compensation packages for high-level executives in school districts and other government organizations. So here we go. So the government code requires executive compensation to be orally summarized in open session before it's approved by the board. The Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Information Systems salary will be a base salary. Will be a base salary of $258,154 for the 21-22 school year. The contract includes a one-step increment each year of the contract. One-step increment shall be equal to 2.3% of the base salary during the prior contract year. An annual cell phone stipend will be $600. The Assistant Superintendent is required to possess and maintain an automobile to use for travel in the performance of his regularly assigned duties throughout the district and the county of Santa Clara, for which he will receive a flat monthly car allowance of $535. The Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Information Systems shall be eligible to participate and is not required to participate at his own expense in the insurance plans, medical, dental, vision made available by the board to district employees pursuant to 22119.285 of the Education Code and Section 125 of the Internal Revenue Code. The Assistant Superintendent shall receive a fully paid term life insurance program with a benefit amount of $100,000. The district shall pay the annual dues or fees for a total of 2 associations, state or national, to which the Assistant Superintendent belongs for purposes related to his duties as Assistant Superintendent, and 1 local service or community club as approved by the Superintendent. So this is the summary of the verbal summary of the compensation package offered to the Assistant Superintendent.
And then now we're on to C, approval of the contract.
So I'm recommending to the board that we approve the classified Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Information Systems employment contract and salary schedule as presented in the floor.
And seeing no public comment, board, is there a motion? Move to approve the classified Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Information Systems employment contract and salary schedule as presented. All right, board, any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. Thank you very much.
Now we're on to C, the verbal summary of compensation package offered to the Assistant Superintendent of Special Education and Student Services.
Okay, this is gonna sound very similar. Government Code Section 54953C3 requires executive compensation to be orally summarized in open session before it's approved by the board. The Assistant Superintendent of Special Education and Student Services salary will be a base salary of $281,559 for the 21-22 school year. The contract includes a one-step increment for each year of the contract. One-step increment shall be equal to 2.3% of the base salary during the prior contract year. The annual cell phone stipend will be $600. The assistant superintendent is required to possess and maintain an automobile to use for travel and performance of her regularly assigned duties throughout the district and the county of Santa Clara, for which she will receive a flat monthly car allowance of $535. The assistant superintendent shall be eligible to participate, but is not required to participate at her own expense in the insurance plans, medical, dental, vision made available by the board to the district employees pursuant to section 22119.285 of the Education Code and section 125 of the Internal Revenue Code. The assistant superintendent shall receive a fully paid term life insurance program with a benefit amount of $100,000. The district shall pay the annual dues or fees for a total of 2 associations, state and national, to which the assistant superintendent belongs for purposes related to her duties as assistant superintendent, and 1 local community club as approved by the superintendent.
And then we're on to item D, approval of the contract.
So it is my recommendation that the board approve the certificated assistant superintendent of special education and student services contract and let us know salaries that are attached to this.
All right.
The contract.
I move,
Seeing no public comment, go for it, Jeff.
I move to approve the certificated assistant superintendent of special education and student service contract.
Okay. Board, any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. Thank you, Tasha. We are now on to E, verbal summary of compensation package offered to the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment contract.
Okay, so government code, 54953C3 requires executive compensation to be orally summarized in open session before it's approved by the board. The assistant superintendent of curriculum, instruction, and assessment salary shall be a base salary of $290,710.45 for the 21-22 school year. The contract includes a one-step increment each year of the contract. One-step increment shall be equal to 2.3% of the base salary during the prior contract year. An annual cell phone stipend will be $600. The assistant superintendent is required to possess and maintain an automobile to be used for travel and the performance of her regularly assigned duties throughout the district and the county of Santa Clara, for which she will receive a flat monthly car allowance of $535. The assistant superintendent of curriculum, instruction, and assessment shall be eligible to participate, but is not required to participate at her own expense in the insurance plans, medical, dental, vision made available by the board to district employees pursuant to section 22119.285 of the Education Code and section 125 of the Internal Revenue Code. The assistant superintendent shall receive a fully paid term life insurance program with a benefit amount of $100,000. The district shall pay the annual dues or fees for a total of 2 associations, state or national, to which the assistant superintendent belongs for purposes related to her duties as assistant superintendent, and 1 local service or community club as approved by the superintendent.
We are now on to, that was, okay, approval of that contract.
Yeah, so it is my recommendation that the board approve the certificated assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction contract. That's cut off there.
All right, and seeing no public comment, or is there a motion? I'll move to approve certificated assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction. For a second. Second. Or any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Chair votes aye, and with that, the motion passes. Congratulations, Laura. And on to, who is writing on the compensation package? All right. Verbal summary of compensation package offers to superintendent. You'll probably get it back to the right.
I got good at it.
The superintendent's salary will be a base salary of $318,478.17 for the 2021-22 school year. The contract includes a one-step increment each year of the contract. One step increment shall be equal to 2.3 of the base salary during the prior contract year. The annual cell phone stipend will be $600. The superintendent is required to possess and maintain an automobile to be used for travel in the performance of his regularly assigned duties throughout the district in the county of Santa Clara, for which he will receive a flat monthly car allowance of $535. The superintendent shall be eligible to participate, but is not required to participate at his own expense in the insurance plans, medical, dental, and vision made available by the board to district employees pursuant to section 23119.285 of the Ed Code and section 125 of the Internal Revenue Code. The superintendent shall receive a fully paid term life insurance program with a benefit amount of $135,000. The expense of attendance at professional conferences, seminars, and meetings, as well as maintenance of membership in appropriate professional organizations, including annual dues or fees associated with membership in two associations, state or national, and the Sunnyvale Rotary Club, shall be at district expense, excluding any cost paid for or reimbursed by the sponsoring agency. The board encourages the superintendent to maintain and improve his professional competence by all available means, including subscriptions to appropriate periodicals, the cost of which shall be at district expense. And then we are on to H, approval of that contract. So it's recommended the board approve the compensation package offered to the superintendent as presented. Seeing no public comment, or is there a motion?
I want to approve of compensation of package offered to the superintendent.
All right, any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Chair votes aye, and if not, the motion passes. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody, for all the hard work that you guys do. We are on to item 16, future meetings. Our next meeting is next Thursday. It's a regularly scheduled meeting, but it is not regular in the sense that it's with governance development. And it's there at 7 o'clock, right? 7 o'clock here in the district boardroom. And unless there's anything else, with that, I adjourn at 9:49. Thank you, everybody. Congratulations on your in-person board meeting. Hear that?